Welcome, welcome, welcome. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me with a special agenda. I really appreciate everyone who's taking the time to join me tonight to discuss something that anyone that is a part of my village and understands what day to day life looks like for parents who have ADHD, the children that are have ADHD, and also some who are on the spectrum, understand that our biggest concerns are being good parents and not providing trauma to our kids. Oftentimes, we don't realize the damage that we unintentionally do. So I make it my vision, my purpose, my intent daily to try really hard to not be an incompetent parent or someone who is not mindful of my children, who they are, and what I plan to impart daily to them, what I plan to teach. It is crucial that we are mindful of the individual that we are helping to become good people. Because every day our goal should be becoming better parents and creating people who aren't traumatized, which many of us experienced what we experienced when we were younger because of people not being aware of what they were dealing with, how to cope with us, and unintentionally following the instructions of others without being mindful of the child that they were dealing with and the harm that that could permanently create. This book that I'm reading currently has made such a huge impact on what I learned about the chaos that I had every day just with myself and trying to get things done. Because this room is truth in advertising. This space is meant to help parents who have issues and didn't realize what was really going on. That you weren't a bad person, that you weren't lazy, that you weren't um, intentionally losing things. Or I remember I used to have a problem. You see, I'm wearing glasses now. I've worn glasses most of my life, and because of that, I needed them to see. Like my vision was awful. It's gotten better because I had to have surgery at a point in my life because of my diabetes, and I developed um, cataracts. And because of that, um, my vision improved because due to surgery. But before that, blind as a bat, blind as a bat. Need a walking stick and a guide dog, two of them. But I constantly lost my glasses. I would be late to school because I couldn't find my glasses. Without my glasses, I couldn't get my work done. I couldn't find my way to school. But that wasn't intentional. But that wasn't the only thing I lost. When you have children that lose things, sometimes as parents, we forget that there are a lot of things that they do, it is not because of carelessness. And if we are honest with ourselves and think back to what our childhood was like and what we were like and the things that we struggle with daily, we realize that they're struggling with the exact same things that we had a problem with. So rather than creating more problems by yelling at them and constantly creating this loophole where they and we also are losing things, creating patterns of which we can't figure out a plan so that some of the things that we struggle with, we can have solutions. But my son, he and I constantly have conversations where I had to come to an understanding that a lot of what was happening, we always say he's my child that gets in trouble accidentally. He's my child that gets in trouble constantly, accidentally. That's child, great intentions, constantly having things that happen. But as parents, sometimes we forget to create. Uh-uh. Sorry, guys. Uh, Solutions. I remember my mother-in-law taught me something that is a trick that I use even now. I used to, my husband and I both would misplace our keys. Terrible about it. Still have problems with it sometimes in the house, but we would have problems with it in the car too. Lock the keys in the car. And she said one thing that she learned was to put her keys on her ring finger. So now, anytime I get out of my car and I go anywhere, I put my keys on my ring finger. That way, I won't misplace them. Finding solutions to situations is much more helpful than finding constant criticism. Because you could criticize someone until they have low self-esteem. Most people who are autistic or have any neurodivergent issues or have ADHD have low self-esteem because they're constantly criticized for the things that are just minor hiccups, things that come with that. But it doesn't make you less of a person. Matter of fact, many people who have ADHD are brilliant in certain things. They're amazing cooks, extremely creative, so many great characteristics, but constantly having correction in a pattern in which the individuals that are correcting you forget that they have the same problems gets to be problematic and so harsh that the individuals sometimes don't thrive because they're so hyper focused on trying to get your approval all the time. One of the things I learned and I caught on to with myself as I found with my son, I was constantly correcting him for losing things and realizing that one day I just had one of those moments where I realized, how do you chastise someone harshly for constantly losing stuff, and now you got to have them get their phone and help you find yours? Like now, you got to ask this child that you just read them their Miranda rights for losing something, putting something down and not being able to find it, and now you don't know what you did with your phone. Where they do that at state, or they don't know what to do with their shoes. Now you got to tell them now how those black shoes and describe them to them and have them help you find yours. You got to pay them to help you find your keys in the house. Sometimes as parents, we forget that we are not perfect. And because we're not perfect, they aren't either. And they don't deserve to be made to feel like everything about that they say or do is in need of correction. It took me to today years old to understand that a lot of times risks get created in relationships because of constantly correcting people when you know what they meant, or trying to make them feel like they could have done better about something that's in the past they couldn't have. They couldn't have done better about something that already happened. And who that person has become, or we can do better about who we're becoming, but we can't do anything about what we were or what our parents were. Giving people grace in those moments, even our maids. Because oftentimes if we have something that's going on, our maids have something that's going on, guess what? You do too. We forget all the time that while we are busy correcting this person, we forget about the things that are wrong with us, the things that aren't perfect about us. And it tends to ruin relationships and friendships. And your children, at some point, they may not be your friend when they're children, but as they become older and you all begin to make connections and understandings, and they begin to really see you, you will. So it's important to get that together. This book that I'm reading right now, Taking Charge, The Complete Authoritative Guide for Parents, ADHD. Oh my God. Russell A. Barkley, PhD. The chapter that hit me the hardest as a parent and as a manager of my household, along with my husband, or as I say, I'm co-manager. This right here. Oh my God. Managing life and how to cope at home and at school. And it's part 3 on it's page 175. And one of the things it suggested that you do, and it was so eye-opening, was having purposeful goals and writing a list of the traits that made for an excellent supervisor and what was the worst supervisor you ever had. And we all, if you're an adult that's ever worked a job or have worked several jobs over the over the years, everyone has had horror stories at some point of the kind of managers that they had that they didn't appreciate or weren't appreciated. The things that made that supervisor an awful supervisor. What did they do that caused you trauma and you at some point hated that job or despised that manager? And there were so many things. What made them the worst manager? Did they micromanage you? Were they dishonest? Were they unnecessarily mean? Were they appreciative of the sacrifices you made for the job? Were they unnecessarily cruel? I had one particular manager that I constantly spoke to him about this one particular incident where we had been another company next to us reached out to us to let us know that the footings of their fence, the footings of their fence around their property was washed out. Well, this was a nursing home with people who would wander off the property, and because of the footings being washed out from around their fencing, it now made their fence unsecure, and this was a safety problem. So they had to address this, and this was going to cost them money. We needed to address it and get back to them. I constantly talked to him. I made him notes every single day about it. Every time they call, I let him know. I let the assistant manager know. I wrote it down. I put it in this box. I wrote it down. I put it in this box. I wrote it down, and I talked to him. He told me to stay out of his face and leave him alone. So finally, they finally did get in contact with him because he wasn't reaching back out to them to sue the company. Now, this was a leasing company. Everybody had their position. I was not management, but I was doing my job, reaching out to manager. What ended up happening was he came back to me, shouting at me about it, said that I wasn't giving him his messages. Now, this is the same man who told me to stay out of his face about it. I kept putting him in his box and talking to him every day about it. I let upper management know, let the assistant manager know what was going on. He came into me this one particular day to prove to me that I was not giving him messages or anything. So he comes giving me 5 messages and said, I got 5 messages right here. None of them are from you. I took 3 of them out of his hand. I said, and then these 3 are from me. This is my signature. These are the messages. He turned around, walked out of my face, did not apologize to me, tried to humiliate me in front of management. I mean, in front of everybody. There were tenants there. He was making a big scene. Once he realized that he had made a mistake, did not apologize. As parents, do we do that to our children? Do we make big mistakes under the assumption that they didn't do anything, didn't do what we told them to? Are we micromanaging them, following them, not giving them a chance to do what was said, or they did do what we were give they were doing what we told them to do? We didn't acknowledge it, and then we walked away after making a big scene. Many times as parents, we do things of that nature. And because of our realization that we are the authority, we give more credence to the fact that we are the authority in their life without realizing what we could do to traumatize them, what we could have done to make this easier, not giving consideration to the fact that they did not intentionally do anything wrong. They're not perfect, but they actually were doing what was required of them. And because of us believing that we have more power and authority, not considering how this affects them, not being fair to them. There have been times that, in being honest, giving my children instructions and not giving them a moment to start doing it. Sometimes we let the frustrations of who is fussing at us or what's happening as a result of something we're not looking at directly apply pressure to them in an unfair way. And if this becomes our pattern of behavior, sometimes it gives them anxiety. Sometimes they can't hear us clearly because of all the extra chaos that we're creating, rather than taking the time to walk away, personally saying a prayer, and coming back to them. Taking the time to be fair. And a lot of times we don't do that. We don't consider that they're not doing anything wrong, and they're actually trying to do what we ask. But they're not doing it in the time frame that we expect them to do it, or the manner in which we would do it. See, sometimes doing things different doesn't mean they're doing things wrong. They're doing it in a way that will work for them. And then we gave it a chance, and was considerate as we would be if they weren't our child, or this was someone we treated like we like. We wouldn't respond in that manner. I've had management scream at me or at our team, but when our management is there, they don't behave in that manner. Or you get the managers who feel like they are being impressive by being unnecessarily snappy at you. Are we those parents? And I'll honestly say there have been moments where later I am not proud of how I spoke to my child. And I have to go back and apologize. But as parents, that's what's important that you do. Making sure that you take that list of qualities that you experienced and make sure that you're not emulating something that you don't want them to imitate. Lots of times, the children that are experiencing the most chaos within school, they're actually imitating the behavior that they're experiencing at home. This is what's being taught. They cannot give you what they don't have. And as parents, Much of what we know is what we've learned, but sometimes we have to unlearn unhealthy behavior. We have to show our children that we are trustworthy emotionally when they are having a hard time, when things are difficult at school. We have to open the floor for them to be honest with you. Why did they not turn in homework in? Were they having a hard time? Did they just procrastinate? Did they procrastinate because they wanted to do something fun? Because what they were doing was hard. One of the things I learned from my mom, I'll never forget, I remember vividly, it was starting to get dark. And I could sit in our stairwell and I could see the other kids through the screen door and they were playing and playing. And I remember thinking about all this hard work and all this work that I had to do. And there were a couple of subjects that weren't my favorite. And I knew it was going to take me a good bit of time. I remember crying, and my mom saying, well, it's going to continue to get darker. And you're going to still have this work. And you have to complete it. This is not something that you aren't going to complete. You're not going to get to not do this and go out and play. And the amount of time that you spend crying is time that's cutting into the time that you would have if you completed this work and went outside. I understand that this is not easy. So what might be a better idea is pick the easier work so you can have more time on the harder work. And I can assist you with what you need, but crying is not your solution because crying won't get it done. It's fine to help your children find a solution and helping them to understand what they need to do to come up with one. Sometimes it's hard to come up with a solution, and you have to help them to understand too that sometimes you're not going to have one, but together you can get it done. You can get it done together, and you'll always be there to be helpful, but you can't do it. What we want to teach our children is that we are there to help them, but it's important that they learn that they have to help themselves. You won't always be there to hold their hand, but you don't want to make your communication where you seem like you don't acknowledge what progress they've made and how proud of them you are, but you're acknowledging it, that because it's not easy, they may need help. And it's okay to need help. But you have to understand help won't be me doing it for you. Because there's those children too, as parents, that sometimes we try to make it easy. But trying to make things too easy because we don't want to talk to them about it. Or you see that they're overwhelming, you're trying to make it super easy for them, thereby making it easy for you, won't uncomplicate their life. Because what we don't want to do either is teach them that they shouldn't engage in anything that will be difficult. Life won't always be easy, but it won't always be hard either. And those are the things that we need to try to impart as parents. But mostly, it's really important that we help our children have a positive perspective and how to get positive attention. Planning to help your children plan their own life is key because they will have to learn to manage. And in each step in life, our goal is to teach our children the steps to manage, maintain, and thrive. We feed our children when they're born, but at some point, we teach them how to feed themselves. The same thing with walking. We hold their hand for a while, but at some point, you have to let go. Each step is a part in plan in teaching. And the manner in which we correct them has to be a way in which they don't also we're not personally teaching them to constantly have a voice of criticism regarding themselves, their actions, and their interactions with others. We do want them to acknowledge and take responsibility when they do make mistakes. But in order for them to do that, we have to do that too. We have to be willing to acknowledge when we've made poor choices in the pattern in which we correct them, and the way that we talk to them, and how they see us interact with other family members, members of our congregation, their other parent. If that parent is around, whether you're married to them, living with them, co-parenting with them, long distance parenting with them, whatever that may be, even if you all don't have a good relationship, you and that other parent, it has to look like when errors are made, you take accountability. Also, it's important that you don't, when you see someone having something negative to say, even about you, and you know that that other parent even may be saying something negative to that child about you, it's important that you find a way to help them understand that though things may not be going smooth between you all love each other in connection with you and that child. Never say anything in exchange negative back, because it's not teaching them anything, nothing good. It's important that they learn that saying something negative in exchange for something negative isn't productive. And when we are parenting them and they make mistakes, it's important that we don't make their flaws appear to be character flaws. There will be times when correction is needed, but correction should be for the purpose of teaching, not just edifying the fact that we're angry and we need to teach them not to make us angry. That's not how life works. There are many people that are going to make you upset, and sometimes it's not intentional, and sometimes people are unaware because of the way that they interact. It's our purpose to talk to the individuals that have, we feel, wronged us or upset us, so that you have a productive conversation in which it is understood what happened and how this could be better for future interaction. Every conversation you have in your head and before it comes out of your mouth should be, I'll say, an email conversation. An email conversation is in print. You won't look like a villain. And purpose is reached, solutions are reached, and are amicable for all involved. That is the purpose of what I call an email conversation. And it doesn't have to be an actual email, but it has to be one in which you have edited it in your mind before you communicate. It is key that you do that with your children and with the rest of your family as well, so that they can see what healthy communication looks like, and they can understand that conversation should be solution based. If this is not a solution within this conversation, you might be able to skip it. Thank you for taking the time to join me in the room with a special agenda. Let's be kind to each other, help each other, take the time to take charge of our life, create solutions so that we can help our family to grow, to continue to thrive in a healthy manner, in a loving manner. But check this book out. If you can't get it from your library, look it up on eBay or Amazon. But I definitely suggest your local library, because this book, oh my God, taking charge of at home, the art of problem solving, that will help you. Helping your child with their peer problems also will help you, because it's adults are just children that got older, and we have the gift and the privilege of raising someone. We want to do a good job. Our Heavenly Father is kind and understanding, and He requires that we be that as well. He never requires that we do anything that we are not capable of doing. We are indeed capable. Let us take the time to honor our Heavenly Father by doing the best we can with the gift He gave us. If you're privileged enough to have children and you're privileged enough to have a family, take the time to be kind, to be considerate. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.